What's up guys, Sean Nalawani, SeanNal.com, bodytransformationtruth.com. And in this video here, I'm gonna be explaining how to properly transition from cutting to bulking once your fat loss phase is over and you're ready to start building some more muscle. This is something that a lot of lifters don't do properly. The main consequence being that they end up putting on an excessive amount of unwanted body fat during that cut to bulk transition. If you've put in the hard work and the discipline to carry out a complete cutting phase right to the end, and you've dropped a good amount of fat and reached your goal in terms of overall leanness, then you'll want to make sure that you handle this post-dieting period with care so that you don't end up regressing and erasing the progress that you've made. So how do you properly transition from cutting to bulking while keeping body fat gains under control? First and foremost, if you're serious about doing this the right way, then it's very important that you do have a concrete post-diet plan in place. The reason being that if you've been in a calorie deficit over a prolonged period of time and you just start eating on instinct as soon as your cut is over, based purely on hunger and cravings, you're pretty much guaranteed to go overboard on total calories. Remember that your body is really just a survival machine when it all comes down to it. It's still programmed for a time when food was scarce, and it doesn't care about your desire for lean abs or, delt arm separation. As far as your body is concerned, an ongoing calorie deficit is basically equal to a famine. And so as you remain in that deficit for longer periods of time, it will start making hormonal adjustments, both to conserve energy and to motivate you to find food and eat. So important hormones that regulate your hunger and fat loss, like leptin, testosterone, T3, those will all decrease, and you'll also experience a drop in what is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT for short. And that basically refers to all the small actions that you take throughout the day that you probably don't even think about. So things like fidgeting in your seat, tapping your fingers, small head movements. And you might think that those little movements don't really count for anything, but the calories burned from NEAT can pretty easily add up to several hundred calories or more per day. But the bottom line is that once your cut is over, your appetite and your cravings will be at their highest, and your body will be physically primed for maximum fat storage at the same time. And so that's why eating purely on instinct can very easily lead to large amounts of fat gain over the course of a few weeks and months. And it's also why so many people end up regaining the weight that they lost on their initial diet. Now, when it comes to transitioning from cutting to bulking, this usually gets exaggerated even further because people will justify eating those large amounts of calories by saying that, since they're bulking now, their body needs all of that extra food. However, the reality is that it only takes a small surplus of a few hundred extra calories at most to maximize how much muscle your body can build in a given day. And so any calories that you take in beyond that point are just going to be stored as fat. Now, if you're going really high on calories just for a couple days to reward yourself after your cut is over, then that's not going to do you much harm as long as it doesn't spiral out of control. But all in all, the underlying approach of your cut to bulk transition is to make sure you increase your calories in controlled amounts so that you can move back to your calorie maintenance level and into a surplus without going overboard. Now, in terms of actually doing that, a lot of people will recommend what's called reverse dieting, which is basically a method of increasing your calories in small increments from week to week until you get back to your calorie maintenance level. Reverse dieting does seem to make sense at first glance. It's something that I used to do as well. It can work fine for some people, but for the vast majority of trainees, it's just not going to be necessary. I mean, if you've reached your desired level of leanness and you're not aiming to lose any more fat, then it doesn't really make sense to only increase your calories by, say 5% per week, because doing that would actually keep you in a net calorie deficit during that time, which means you're going to keep losing fat to a certain degree, and you're also just prolonging the amount of time that it's going to take to get your metabolism re-elevated and your hormones and your appetite back in balance. So instead of slow, drawn-out reverse dieting, a better approach is to just move straight from your deficit right back to your calorie maintenance level as quickly as you can. Remember that your maintenance calories are what it takes to maintain your current weight. And so you're not going to magically gain fat by doing that. However, the key thing to understand here, and this is the big mistake that most people make when they transition from cutting to bulking, is that your calorie maintenance level at the end of your cut is not the same as it was at the beginning of your cut. Your overall body weight is obviously going to be lower after you finish cutting, and your metabolism has adapted to a certain degree. And so your maintenance level is also going to be lower as a result of that. A lot of people will start off with a maintenance level of, say, 3,000 calories. They start their cut at 2,500 calories. They end off at 2,000, and then they immediately jump right back to 3,000 calories, or they might even go and add in a few hundred more on top of that because they're trying to create an extra surplus for muscle growth. When in reality, their actual maintenance level might be more like 2,500 calories rather than 3,000, and their calories for muscle growth at that point might be more like 2,800 calories rather than, say, 3,300. So there's no perfect way to know precisely what your exact maintenance calories are going to be after your cut is over. It's not going to be 100% dead on, but a good way to estimate it, assuming you've cut down to maybe 12% body fat, give or take as a male, or about 20% give or take as a female. And I don't recommend committing to a full-on bulk unless you're somewhere around that level anyway. So if you are much above that, you'll probably want to lean down first. But if you have gotten down to around that level, then a basic body weight multiplier should work fine. I've typically recommended that people multiply their body weight in pounds by 14 to 16. And if you take into account some of those metabolic adaptations that are going to occur at the end of a cut, you can just go with the lower end of 14 to be safe. So just take your body weight in pounds, multiply it by 14, and then treat that as your approximate new calorie maintenance level. Another method you can use is your rate of weight loss instead. So if at the end of your cut, you were losing about a pound per week, which would be pretty standard, that should represent about a 500 calorie deficit, in which case you can just go ahead and add back in 500 calories to put yourself around your maintenance level. Again, these calculations are never going to be perfect, and being off by a bit isn't a big deal, but this should put you around the right level. So now that you've gone from a calorie deficit to around your calorie maintenance level, you are likely going to see a small amount of immediate weight gain. But keep in mind that as long as you've only made a moderate increase to your calories using one of those methods that I just gave, this isn't going to be the result of fat gain, but it's just going to be from increases in glycogen levels, water weight, and just from having more food in your system in general. But give that a few days to fully kick in, and then from there, just watch your overall body weight and see what happens. If it stabilizes at that point, then you'll know that you've hit your current calorie maintenance level, and you can just move right into your calorie surplus from there. Or if you're still losing weight, then you'll want to increase your calories further until your weight does stabilize. So maybe add in another 100 calories or so, give it 5 days, add another 100, and just continue until you hit that stabilization point. In terms of your actual calorie surplus, anywhere from about 200 to 350 calories above maintenance per day, that's going to be a good figure for a lean bulk. Beginners can go with the higher end since they're going to have the highest muscle building potential, and more intermediate trainees can use the lower end. And if you're an advanced trainee, then I'd go even lower, maybe around 100 to 150 per day on average, since muscle growth will be happening quite slowly at that point. But that's really all there is to it, guys. Estimate your new calorie maintenance level once your cut has ended, find the intake that stabilizes your weight, and then move into a calorie surplus for lean bulking. There's no need to turn this into a super long, drawn out process. Your basic goal is to just get back to maintenance and into a surplus as quickly as you can, but to do it in a controlled manner. Also keep in mind that once your calories go back up and your hormone levels get back into balance, your actual metabolic rate will increase as well. And so even though your maintenance calories or your calorie surplus target might seem a bit low at the very end of a cut, it will start to gradually increase, and you should be able to steadily eat more food without actually gaining body fat. And lastly, also keep in mind that some body fat gain is inevitable when you're moving from cutting to bulking. It's just part of the process. So it isn't going to be perfect, especially if you had cut down to a very lean body fat percentage. But the main thing here is to just minimize it rather than going all out like so many people do after their diet ends. Achieving significant fat loss is a tough process that requires self-control and discipline. And the last thing you want to do is go ahead and throw all that effort down the drain by just binging once your cut is over, because that's a very common thing that you will see, unfortunately. So I hope this was helpful. If you do want to grab a complete step-by-step plan that shows you how to lay out a complete bulking or cutting phase from A to Z, the workouts, the meal plan, supplement guides, and one-on-one coaching, then you can check out my body transformation blueprint by clicking here or by visiting bodytransformationtruth.com. The link is in the description box. Make sure to follow me on social media here. The links for that are also in the description. The official website is seannell.com. And if you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button, share, leave a comment, and subscribe to stay up to date. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon.